Well, I can already hear Jim complaining about me streaming at 3 in the morning. And the short answer for me doing this at this time is because I just can't get to sleep. I've explained before the general breakdown of Saturdays for me is I'll have a stream planned at like 9, 10, 11, later part of the morning. And usually I go to sleep at probably 1 or 2 in the morning. Then I try to fall asleep before that time. So in that like 5 or 6 hour period, go to sleep and then go and do the stream after that, and then run some errands. And I just don't feel like doing it today. I really don't. Um, so he'll probably get upset, but it is what it is. Because like I said, every week is the same thing, just running around back and forth, trying to seemingly compete with myself. Like, oh yeah, make sure you do this, make sure you go over here, make sure you get that, make sure you do this. I just I only have so much energy, I guess the way I could say it. And I've also explained before that I really hate parking in that parking lot. I think it's really annoying. I hate that people play music, which can get me in trouble. It's just not exactly something I look forward to. So being able to dodge it for a week is a prospect I find very appealing. But yeah, I did part two. I worked like a dog on that thing. Let me just kind of break down the process. When part one finished last week and was released last Friday, um, I had probably 2 paragraphs at most of that thing written. And so over the course of Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I think to an extent Wednesday as well, I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and that 12-page script on Google Docs that took up what was part one is now like 35 pages. It's very massive. And that makes sense because part two was twice as long as part one. So of course the script's going to be bigger. But I I'm just going to caution and say that part three is probably going to take 2 weeks at a minimum. I'm not. I really did just like make this the only thing I was doing for the whole week, and I'm kind of tired because it wasn't even just you write it. You also have to, as I've explained before, edit it, record the audio, and then when you get the pictures, you have to stick the audio on top, edit out the parts where you're stuttering or whatever. Just it's a process. That's why that one person really just made me roll my eyes. They were talking about, is part two coming out in 20 years? Like I said, part one hadn't even been out for 3 days, and that person writes something that insane or ridiculous. So I just decided to, I don't want to say expedite it, but I didn't expect the reaction to it because I said before part one took as long as it did because I was kind of, I don't want to say um, being very slow on purpose, but I wasn't going as fast as I could have because I didn't think it was that it was kind of a thing where I think the first time you make something of any series or ongoing thing is always the hardest because you kind of like wrestle with, do I really want to do this? Do I not want to do this? I don't know. But I decided to do it because I felt that it was something that was important to me. It was something I wanted to do. It was something that maybe isn't being done the way I would truly like for it to be done, but it still is better than nothing is what I'm getting at. So yeah, I just pretty much decided I was gonna bolt through it and brave the storm for a week, and that was about 190 pages in the book. Because part two is the longest part of the whole thing. I was thinking, I don't know if part three is going to be the entire time he was senator, or maybe it's just him being senator for the first 5 years, and then the majority leader stuff is for part four, because that's the way that the book splits it up. I'm not sure. I could go, any type of way on that at this point. It's really up in the air. It's just one of those things where you never really know until you start doing it how far it's going to go. I was kind of thinking about what the future of this will be, and I was saying, the presidency part's going to be really difficult to do, because there's so many ways. From if I were to try to split it in parts, that would already be difficult. Um, but there's so many ways to do it without specifically going in chronological order. So if I wanted to split it and just talk about Vietnam by itself, like as one big giant hour plus long video, that's possible. Um, if we wanted to get caught up on certain issues, like try to get the domestic stuff and put that in the one video or two videos, that's something else. It's difficult to really field all of it together. Like I'm not entirely sure, because I thought that when like the way I'm envisioning it right now is that part three is half of the Senate years, and then part four is the other half of the Senate years, and then part five is the vice presidency, and then six is the beginning of the presidency. Probably, and that's why I said I would try to frame it in a way where, if I were to do the beginning of his tenure as president in one part, it would be the immediate aftermath of the assassination, and then probably that's where we start getting to that stuff where it's kind of difficult. I think I'd say I maybe would do it to where you go from the immediate aftermath of the assassination to the domestic accomplishments, so the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, etc., etc. And you could have all of that be at least 2 to 3 videos by itself, and then the Vietnam probably could be one big video by itself, and that could be like part 8 and 9 or whatever. That's the best way, I think, if I try to make this come out in pieces, which, like I said, it's much more manageable for me to do it this way, instead of the one big video thing where it's like it just comes out and people ignore it after the first week. Because when it's an ongoing series, a lot of times people feel compelled. I don't know if it's subconscious or not, but a lot of times people are compelled to just sort of go over, be like, hey, so part 3 just came out. I have to see part 1 and 2 first. So I figured I'd do it that way. But no, this thing is on its way. It's moving full speed ahead. Not entirely full speed, I should say. I would like to take a little bit of a break this week. I'm still going to work on part 3, just not as aggressively as I did with part 2, because part 2 was like climbing a mountain. I mean, that thing. I'm still like sitting here thinking to myself, I had to do so much work for that video. Like, the script part was again twice as long as part 1, but I also had to record the audio, and I did that in 3 separate takes, um, which is like part of the reason audio is not 100% consistent there. Again, when we do the eventual merge videos, which are going to be where they're all like merged into one with some probably different visuals, I can re-record stuff depending on which parts are not good or not as to my standard. But yeah, it's a process with these things. It really is. So yeah, part three is 110 pages. I'm gonna and also I was trying to say I was probably gonna see if I could stick some Caro information in there, like skim through some of the Caro books. I'm not entirely sure if I want to do that because I would so much prefer to just read through each one from start to finish in order. I don't like to skip to volume two or three of stuff usually, unless somebody tells me that one of the volumes is really not good, which has been the case with a couple of FDR biographies I've seen. Um, but yeah, what can I say? Part three is definitely something I'm going to do. I did part two, and part two was the longest one, so part three is it's on its way. I don't think it'll be next week, but it will most certainly. I'm very confident it'll be before the month is out, and that's that. I'm not going to call that a pledge because I don't like making promises I can't keep. But I think this is we're in a good pace right now. We're going pretty at a pretty decent speed. I will say that the period where I can imagine there being a big break, like let's say I finished part three, four, and five before October, I probably would try to stop and like improve, like do the big merge video after that, and then maybe not resume until December. Again, just going off of speculation here. I haven't even started on three, so I don't know what it'll look like. Oh man. And then I've also said before that in doing this, I'm kind of tempted to also want to do other people. Um, Again, Johnson is still the primary focus because, like I said, when I start getting caught up on wanting to do four, five, six different projects, that's when things get messy. But I have a list of other people that I would, be interested in something similar to this series with. Maybe Eisenhower, maybe Truman. Roosevelt is definitely a top contender, but the problem with Roosevelt is that there are so many books written on him, and there's a lot of books on him that are they're just like a volume. And you can call this my bias, but I feel like if you were president for three full terms, it wouldn't it would be kind of impossible to do a book that truly captures the I guess weight of your tenure. That's just one book. Like I don't know. I get maybe there's a series on him by I think it's by Kenneth S. Davis, and it's 5 volumes. And I guess there was a sixth one that was never completed. But there's one on him as it's split across the years, but there's one that covers his years as governor of New York. Another, which I would be very interested in reading because I hardly ever hear anyone talk about his time as governor, and that's actually one of the things that attracted me to the doing this series on Johnson because unfortunately, besides the presidency and to a smaller extent his time as a senator, which still gets completely overshadowed, you don't really hear much discussion about his earlier parts of his career, which is very sad because there's plenty of stuff there that's worth remembering or talking about. I mean, this was gone over in the documentary, but the 1948 Senate campaign was notable, one for the style of campaigning that Johnson employed, but also for all of the ballot harvesting and various other little tricks that were used to get him across the finish line. So it's one of those things where I just wish certain stuff was more gone over. But I guess that's the biggest issue whenever you cover someone that got that office. It's just the time in that office basically becomes the only thing they're remembered for, or the chief thing they're remembered for. So it consumes all other aspects of their life. And for some people, that makes a little bit of sense, like I'm not going to sit here and say that Obama, for example, had this extremely distinguished, you know, breathtaking career prior to 2008. It's like, no, he was senator for a few years, didn't really do much. Kind of like Kennedy, and then, sort of got a lot of people hooked on the whole hope and change mantra. But if you're talking about someone like, Eisenhower, I mean, there's no way you can do him justice without talking about his life before he was president. That would have been notable by itself. Mm. I'm gonna need to make a tier list of who of possible subjects. People that we may end up making another one of these on. But trust me, it's going to be a very small select list, and it really just depends. If I'm doing this as an experiment, because like I said, this year has been in many ways unprecedented from how my channel normally goes. Like, the whole few dozen views here, a few dozen views there. Um, but in this case, I really want to see if things are different. Like if things are, if I do something different, will it yield a result that's not the same? Because trust me, I would love nothing more than that. Still can't get over ordering some books and you get some coupons for food. It's interesting. But yeah, it's just something that I'm kind of contemplating. I'm not entirely sure. God, I can't believe I really have almost 2 hours of content on him spread across two videos. Like, so if we do part 3 and 4, we're gonna have 3 hours of content on him. I don't know. I always feel like with a lot of this stuff, I just get pulled in so many different directions. It's like, hey, doing this would be kind of cool, right? It's like, yeah. Oh, and doing this would be kind of cool, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. But no, I've got a pretty tight knit group of people that I'm interested in doing one on. Um, this person at one point asked me about doing one on Kennedy, and I said, in no uncertain terms, I am not interested. If I did one on a Kennedy, it would be Ted Kennedy, because I'm disturbed by the fact that in the, what is it, 13, let me think for a second. Yeah, 13 years since he died. the Senate Democrats really never mention him at all. Like he's he was effectively their sort of like de facto leader, him and Robert Byrd, and it's just they never invoke him or talk about him, uh, which gets on my nerves because, as I've said before, it really does feel like when people pass away, they just, unless in a few cases, they just get completely forgotten. Like they almost stop existing. It's so sad. I'm not even kidding. Sometimes I really think that if you were to just sit here and listen to like modern, like current politicians talk, you would think there'd only been maybe like four presidents and like three other senators. When I was watching the Republican debate, all they did was bring up Reagan over and over again, and it did the same thing in 2016. It did the same thing in 2012, and it was just so crazy because it's like you guys really sit here and you have this party, and I have my issues with him, but Jenk from TYT explained before that the reason they do this is because Reagan's the only Republican president in modern times where they can like invoke him and people actually think something positive. So they can't talk about Bush 43 because of, I mean, where do we start? uh, and obviously they're not going to talk. Well, they talk about Trump because that's the he's popular within their party, but not regular voters. So yeah, Reagan is the one that they tend to invoke the most because that's who they think is in high demand. God, I'm telling you, these things are always so interesting. Like I said, and all the times I've been depressed over the last year, and even before that, arguably, it's nice to have a little bit of stuff to take it away for a moment. Like it doesn't cure it, but it helps. It's like a medication in a way. I had a job interview on, I think it was, which day was a Wednesday? Yeah. And I went up there, and first thing that's weird is that the gate is locked. And I'm like, why is the gate locked? Now, of course, they see me coming. They see my the car pull up, so they let me in. After that, I go to the entrance. They ask me if I have a resume. I say I don't. I fill out the paperwork. Well, I fill out the form they have on the computer, their little device, and I start talking to one of the people that works there, and they're telling me about the position, and there's no customer service, and you just have to do a boxes. I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds pretty, something that's kind of like up my alley, I guess. I mean, I'm not against working with people, but as I've explained before, customers will blame you for anything and everything. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll just sit here and not like I'll take it, right? I'll take whatever they give me. And then they drop the bombshell. Oh, this job is seasonal. And I'm like, wait a second, you guys, because I've said before, there are jobs that, yeah, they're only there for a part of the year. But these people, I'm not kidding. I see them selling things all year long. So they're going to hire, the way that they made this sound is they'll hire you in October, and then maybe they'll keep you on until January or February. And then after that, you're just out of luck. Just go find something else. And this goes back to why I said that I always I felt this way for the last few years, that getting a regular um, what's the word for I'm thinking of getting a regular 8 hour a week job that keeps me for more than maybe a few weeks, a few months is impossible. The way that this is going to go is there's going to be some place, it could be this year, it could be next year, it could be the one after that, that hires me for maybe a few weeks, again, maybe a month. And after that time is up, they get rid of me and they, get somebody else. And then they, get rid of that person. And then they just, keep playing revolving door for the foreseeable future. Because that's how these jobs are. And that's why I've said it doesn't matter how much, like people talk about, oh, you think so negatively. It's like, I'm not going to see a pattern and not notice it. Like I believe in evidence. I don't sit here and go, well, I feel like this will be no, we've seen this happen before. We've seen all the time wasting, we've seen all the lies, we've been down this route. Uh so that's why I don't get shocked or surprised. Tell you bad experiences can play a very big role in why someone doesn't believe the things that they used to, or like I know maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago I never would have thought it was impossible to just get a job, but after the experiences I've had, I just can't subscribe to the idea that this stuff is going to improve anytime soon. So you can call me negative, you can say I'm what's the other stupid phrase they use, self-fulfilling prophecy, but I'm just telling the truth. You have to establish a pattern that's positive for me to believe positive about certain things. Like if I said, hey, somebody's going to upload a video on YouTube tomorrow, I have no evidence that they're going to do this, but because people upload every day, just random different people upload every day, then we can infer it's probably going to be the case that happens, that someone does upload something. Oh man. But yeah, the next edited video I'm gonna try to work on is the decline. It's gonna talk about a variety of things. It's kind of like this year's version of We Can't Go Back, where it's just sort of touches on all the little like behind the scenes maclamations of my mind, I guess you could say. Machinations. Because when I did that video, I thought things couldn't get any worse, and how wrong I was. I'm not even kidding. I feel like every relative that does something screwed up has some person that just defends them no matter what. Like it doesn't matter how stupid what they do is, how screwed up it is, how much it hurts somebody else. Because they're related to them, they will just defend them. They will just go, "Oh well, they didn't understand. They didn't know what was going on, and maybe." I'm so sick of that, man. I'm so tired of that. People are just so obnoxious. Like they will. What gets me is like you'll have people. We've talked about this before. They'll get more mad at you for saying something than what somebody did. And because of where I am, I'm not going to go further into that, but you get the idea. We've based off some of the stuff we've spoken about before. No, my heart is telling me to do Roosevelt next, but again, the problem is I just can't track down the right books. Like I think the way this is going to have to go is I'll probably get, let's see, the second and third volume of the S. Davis 5 volume series, and then probably What's another good one? I already have Conrad Black's Mammoth right over here. That was actually one of my favorite things about RFK Jr. He put up a picture of himself and his wife from, I guess it was like National Book Day or National Reading Day or something, and I was able to recognize several, even though the picture is high quality. A lot of the books are not, but I was able to recognize several books that were there. Let me stick that way. Yeah, this is the only book on Roosevelt I have, and I just can't be convinced that we can't get something else as well. It makes a lot of sense to do him and Johnson together because, like I said, they're connected. I mean, Johnson became a congressman when Roosevelt was president, and very much it's like Roosevelt begins the progressivism dominance of the White House, or I guess of American politics, and then Johnson is like the end of it. Like they kind of bookend each other, where this young congressman who came in while Roosevelt was president carried on his work. Uh, after taking the reins almost 20 years later, and pretty much because of various factors. And it's so funny how in just reading some of the stuff on Roosevelt, I saw this one description where, because people were talking about, one of the reasons why the Republicans were able to win in '68 is because people felt like the Great Society had overreached its mandate, and it's like, well, I mean, you could say that, but if you look at the fact that Johnson didn't run, uh, and there was also the very big, anti-Vietnam sentiment. Basically, this is a thing that just happens. Like this is discussed in many retellings of Roosevelt's unprecedented bid for a third term, where he just kind of had the same sort of luck as far as, hey, here's this person who's been here for a while. Maybe we need to get rid of him. But yeah, my heart is really leaning towards Roosevelt, but I just I don't know. It's a hard choice to make. Like the first 178 pages is excuse me, first 200 pages, everything before he becomes president, which I don't know. It's like, is 200 really a good summary for his years as governor of New York? I feel like that time period is something I'm like, I want to see if that's fleshed out anywhere else, which is why I'm inclined to get the Kenneth S. Davis second volume. Hmm. No, it's interesting. That's all I can say. It's a big, majestic book. I think this is the biggest book I have out of any of them. It's huge. And even then, it still might not be enough to tell the whole. I don't know. Like I said, I just have this bias against one book being enough to tell Roosevelt's whole story. That's just my opinion. I just don't think it's. I think there's too much content to have be one. Like if you were doing that for, let's say, Kennedy, for example, which Dalek did do with the Unfinished Life, I could say, you know what, um, that makes more sense to me because he was a congressman for what, two terms. uh, and then a senator for a term and a half or a term in 8 years, whatever. So yeah, I could totally believe that he you could adapt all of it into one book, but I don't know. Roosevelt just I don't think so. So yeah, I really think I'm just kind of I'm not making any commitments, but Roosevelt and doing something like this on him as well would be very appealing. Although again, the problem is if I start that, I have no idea when it's going to end. So it's one thing at a time for me. Hmm. It's so hard to want to do multiple things and then not really be able to settle on what that's why I felt so happy when I did part one and part two this week, because it was like, wow, I actually stuck to one thing and made it, and just kind of like focused entirely on it. It was nice. Yeah, I I don't know. I'm torn. It's always just one of those things where it's me competing with myself. It's like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Like I said, when I was sleeping, I was like, I come on, like I don't have to do this from here again. Oh no. I say, you know what? I just couldn't make it. I tried as hard as I could to close my eyes, and anytime I sit, I sleep, or I guess I close my eyes and lay down for like a whole hour. Like I looked at my clock, I said I laid down. It was like 2:30. Now it's almost 4 o'clock or 3:30 or whatever. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let's just do the stream. I tried. I really did. Mm. No, I got a lot of stuff to do today. Go to the market and pick up my assortment of goods, and then also probably start some of part three. When I cracked open Caro's book for the first time in I think a year, I was not expecting what I read. I was like, wow, yeah, I see why I didn't want to try to implement this, because that thing would be way longer. Like I admit, I skipped over some of the stuff with Johnson's parents because I just didn't want it to take up the whole thing, and I was trying to be, I want to say concise, but not as meticulous. Be the way to put it. No, I was very much dead set on trying to. I don't know. I think I could try to do part three and four together because they are part of. They could be merged into the same video. I don't know. I just know all the stuff before the presidency is probably going to be at least 5 parts. No, I'm not even kidding. There's like 5 or 6 different books on Roosevelt that I would need to get to feel like this is something I could participate in. I mean, I guess maybe. Let's see here. We got the Gene Edward Smith book from 2007. That's when everybody says it's so great. Um, like people were talking about that, and they weren't even mentioning the Conrad Black one. The at least 2 volumes of the Kenneth S. Davis series. I know that H.W. Grant, who's the guy that wrote the very well liked book on Andrew Jackson, I know he wrote one on Roosevelt as well. I can't believe he was last year was the 90th anniversary of him being elected president. It's so interesting because I was watching this one TV special from '82, and they were talking like, oh, it's been 50 years. Like it's nuts to me that 40 years ago was when he was first elected president, which was at that point half a century ago. Like just how much time has passed. Yeah, that book over there is a mammoth. And like I said, the way I'm probably gonna think of doing this is I'll try to read the entirety of the pretty much do most of the stuff with Johnson and then read all of that book and then see if I still feel like I need something else to make a Roosevelt one. And again, if I don't make that one, I can just do someone else, even if that is the one I would most prefer to do out of any of them. Not even kidding. Doing these in groups of twos would be so much more relaxing because at first I was thinking of doing Nixon after, like, after Johnson, but I said, because it makes a lot of sense as well to do them. 'Cause they're right next to each other. Um, but again, it's like I just didn't feel the same immediate urge that I did with Johnson. I don't know. I think it's a hard thing to really invest yourself. And then I kept saying that like next year is the centennial for both Bush 41 and Carter, and I was like, well, because it's the 100th anniversary of both of their births. Maybe I should do something for one of them or both of them or whatever. But even then, it still is like because I would actually say Bush 41 has this tiniest margin of scholarly completed biographies. Like you have 41 by his son, who very obviously you can tell is biased. You have the John Meekum book from I think it was 2015, and there's another one I think by not Chris Sununu. It's like John Sununu. It's called the indispensable presidency of Bush or something to that effect. So there's stuff out there, but it's just not. And of course, you have his non-memoir memoir, All the Best, which I wish he had written a memoir. I really do. Yeah, it's hard to figure out which to pick. I just have to say, I do really like the idea of making these, and even if it only gets you know 3-digit views, whatever. I think there is some great historical, uh, what's the way of putting it, need for these. Like there's something good that comes out of making those, more so than most of the other stuff that we churn out. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting last couple of months of this year. That's for sure. I'm going to have my hands occupied with more long term stuff like this, and probably some goofy employer related things too. There was another one that called me earlier this week, and they were asking me questions, and I answered all the stuff. And I don't know, I'm so used to getting calls at any random hour of the day from different employers, and then like you answer all their questions, and they say they're going to reach out to you again, and then you hear nothing back for like from then until the end of time. Because every job is like this. It's lies and misdirection and pretending that they're interested when they're not. I've just gotten so used to it where it doesn't even register to me that we're ever going to see something different. Yeah, I don't know how you can do how Roosevelt's life before being president is just 200 pages. Because let's see, you've got um, I mean, well, there's like 5 or 6 different major events here. The early life with the very rich daddy, New York State senator, assistant secretary of the Navy, being the running mate in 1920, the whole recovery from his paralysis, and then governor. So yeah, I don't think that can be one you know 200-page section in the book. But again, I'll read it and I'll see if I feel like it's not as descriptive as I would like, and then from there, and even if for example it's not as much as I would like, I could say that we could still salvage it because even with just that section being that long. Excuse me, I take that back because now I remember that it also includes the governor of New York tenure, which I'm fairly convinced should be bigger or should be like a whole thing by itself. Like if I was doing one on Reagan, I wouldn't just jump to him, you know, running for president. You have to talk about his acting career. You have to talk about the support for Goldwater, him, being governor of California, um, then the attempt to, unseat Ford in '76 in the broker convention, and then the eventual successful run in 2 terms. So yeah, there'd be a lot of stuff to go over. Hmm. No, I think I'm gonna make a list, and it'll be where it's like two for two, right? So you just these are the only two I'm doing, nobody else, just these two, just that one and that one, that one and that one, that one and that one. And we just kind of like go from there. So it'll be two that we put together, and we do them as a collective. Even though, like I said, I am still very much interested, and I don't know. I think I'd have to be even more like picky about what senators to do because also there's not a single California senator. Okay, besides Nixon, that I would probably think of doing one on. Um, but it probably would need a more. One second. No, the whole Roosevelt era is interesting, and what's funny is that both he and Johnson have this one thing in common where they have a person who was from their same state and had a position that they either had or were like rumored to be getting and were somewhat close with that ran for president themselves and didn't make it. So in Roosevelt's case, it's Al Smith, and in Johnson's case, it's John Connolly. That's why when we get to all those conspiracy people, I'm always rolling my eyes because him and Connolly knew each other for over 20 years, and I can't imagine based off of the friendship that Johnson had with him that he would be okay with him being in a position of mortal danger like that. Like I just don't buy it. But it happened in his home state, okay? The assassination of Robert Kennedy happened in my home state. Does that mean I was behind it? That's why I said people don't even think; they just say whatever. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. And I didn't even get to mention the whole thing with Pence, where I've been like laughing at him because I think his candidacy is really not something that's going to go anywhere. As far as I don't think he's going to win any states, nothing. Just I think his career is after he loses this primary, he's going to be a Fox News correspondent or maybe somebody that comes out and gives high paid speeches, and that's about it. And of course, maybe he'll put another memoir about, I tried to stop the GOP from going further down, whatever. But the speech he gave on Wednesday was so interesting. Not because he's some great orator, not because he's some terrific, brilliant genius when it comes to delivery. I just thought the substance of it, like, the Republican Party is being overrun by populists. And we may lose the party if this continues. I'm just thinking to myself, dude, like what he had the nerve to name Sanders, Huey Long, and William Jennings Bryan as if anyone that was hearing that speech had any idea who two out of those three people even are. I'm not even kidding. That is the first political speech I have seen that is a modern thing. So something not something I played on C-SPAN that was recorded in the 80s or 90s. That is the first modern speech I have heard where someone mentioned Huey Long or William Jennings Bryan. That's the first one. I've never heard any Democrats mention them. I've never heard any of the other Republicans mention them, which actually is a very big shame because William Jennings Bryan created the modern style of campaigning of traveling around the country, and so he has a legacy that people just kind of gloss over, and it's very disappointing. But I'm not, that's just the nature of this stuff. But no, the speech reminded me of the one that Romney gave back in 2016 about, if we nominate Donald Trump, our chances of a prosperous future, just that whole like same thing of like giving this big warning, don't do this. You're making a mistake. If you pick this person, we're going to lose the election. We're going to lose our, some kind of like some person who is from the era before Trump, but has some connection to him, although Pence's is more overt than Romney's, who's like warning people, if you pick this person, there will be unforeseen or very obvious to the rep to me circumstances that are going to overshadow our prospects of, you know, blah 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 blah. It's like that's really crazy to hear that coming from his VP. And that's why I said Pence's campaign is so interesting to me because as far as I can tell, and I might be wrong, maybe I am. I don't know for sure if I am, but this is the first time a president and a vice president have run against each other since John Nance Garner ran against FDR in 1940. As far as I can tell, again, there might be. I can't think off the top of my head of any other instances of that, but that's crazy. Like, you really have the most recent vice president saying, if you guys try to stick the most recent president from our party back in office, get ready for the end of our party. This was honestly the biggest speech of his campaign. Like, when his campaign ends, there's gonna I should do like a highlight video, and it's gonna be pieces of his announcement that he made. Right? Oh, I'm running, whatever. Some of his debate performances, and then this speech. That's gonna be the whole campaign. Oh, and then the stupid gas commercial. Remember when gas was $2 a gallon? No, I don't. Oh, Jem, I'm shocked you're up so early. Let me tell you what happened. I was trying to go to sleep to make it on time for the stream at like 9 or 10, but I just decided to do it at this point instead of trying to like force myself to wake up early. So I know you're very upset. You've got your pitchfork. You're probably going to unsubscribe in the next 10 seconds. So I already know. Well, I hope you know I worked like a dog on it. When I finished part one, I had no full script or anything close to a full script for part two. I spent about 4 days typing everything out, another two or three recording, and it was quite exhausting. I didn't actually finish the whole thing, like the entire thing altogether, until yesterday morning, um, because I was, which way of putting it, I was trying to make sure the audio was all, was like loud enough or whatever, like the whole way through. So yeah, I hope you'll give me the courtesy of waiting 2 weeks for part three, which will cover either half of his time as senator or the entirety of it. It's going to be at least 5 parts before we get to the presidency, because the vice presidency is theoretically going to just be one, big video as well. Uh, Although not that big because his tenure as VP is mainly just Kennedy not letting him do anything. No, I told you I was going to make this. If I have stuff that comes up, it is what it is. Uh, oh yeah, well, I read through the whole book, and once, just for the sake of reading it a second time to make sure. I mean, when I do a script from a novel, I put all the page numbers in there to make sure that I get anything off this page, I reread this page. So I made sure. I even sang the two campaign songs because there's no audio recordings of them. I had to go and practice with my local musician. They were instructing me in the ways of vocals, and it was quite the extraneous process. So yeah, I hope you know I worked very hard on it. No, I'm pretty sure part three will be out before the end of the month. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get if I do Johnson by himself, I'm about 90% sure I could get the whole thing done before the end of the year. Even though I really we were talking about this before doing Roosevelt. Um Doing him and Johnson together, you know what I'm talking about, like, Franklin D. Roosevelt documentary, part one, part two, and then you get LBJ part seven, like that. It makes a lot of sense because they're like Robert Dallek says they're the two titans of the 20th century, the two that have the most domestic accomplishments out of any of the presidents from that whole 100 years. Uh, but the problem with Roosevelt is that there's so many books on him, and uh, I'd have to. It's like a mishmash, pretty much, where I'd have to go and read this one and figure out if I want to use that one. So that's one thing that kind of has me a little reluctant to do it. Like if I was doing one on Truman, I would get the David. I'm forgetting his name. The David Macaulay. How you pronounce his last name? He has a single volume book on Truman that I thought I've heard is very very good. If I did one on Eisenhower, I would use the Stephen Ambrose 2-volume series. So these. But I'm just saying that Roosevelt would be harder than a lot of the other ones because there's so many different books on it. I don't know which one, depending on like what's the most useful, what has the information I'm trying to get, etc. I'm telling you, man, I worked so hard on that thing this week. Oh God, I got so used to having that Google Doc open and just typing and typing and typing. Before I go to sleep, let me just type some more. I wake up, let me type some more. Like I said, I still haven't even really dug into the Caro series yet. The Robert Caro books on Johnson, which will be even more details. You were in the zone. Oh, Jim, I have to confront you over the most inappropriate question you ever asked me on a stream before, which was what happened to my parents. Look, man, I don't know what kind of parents you have. I don't know what kind of world you live in, but I'm just gonna say this, and you can interpret any way you want. Just because somebody has parents doesn't mean that they're gonna do good or be okay or all right. In a lot of cases, people have others who are more like their parents than their actual parents. And so when something happens to those people, it leaves the person who they were kind of like parents to screwed or worse off, even in spite of the fact their parents are still around. I know you don't like Ford, but Ford is a good example. His dad threatened to kill him and his mother roughly 2 weeks after he was born, and that led to her fleeing and taking him with him, and him being raised by another man who he got his actual recognizable name from instead of his birth name of Leslie Lynch King. Um, so I'm just saying, don't ask me questions about parents because these I'm not interested in trying to serve any type of narrative about how good someone should be off just because of who you know they're related to, or oh your mom and dad are alive so you should be okay. No, it's far from it. With some people, it doesn't matter if you're their son, their daughter, their cousin, their nephew. Uh, they will throw you to the wind. And I do think it would be kind of funny if I ever like got famous off of making these, and then I was like, all right, let me make one on myself, and then you find all the truths of these people around me, and you're like, wow, that person did that. You know what I mean? Like just kind of just all the way. But yeah, Roosevelt, he's definitely on the top of my list. He is definitely up there as someone I want to do some stuff relating to. But again, I'm focused on Johnson because that's the one I started. That's one I said for a while I wanted to do. Uh, so we'll cross that path when we get there. I will say that I think I mentioned this earlier before you showed up. I'll try to do part 3 and 4. So like all the Johnson stuff before the White House, and then I'll revisit the idea of doing one on somebody else. Because like I said, the presidency is going to be a beast. You want to talk about being impressed by 1 hour video? The presidency might end up being like 4, 5, or 6 hours. Like Vietnam by itself is going to need the whole video, if not two. So I remember on Wikipedia, the Vietnam section on Johnson's page was so long that they were like, "Hey, you gotta cut this down. This is too much." Not me, because I only edited that page I think once, uh, maybe twice, a few, like, less than 3 times. I'll put it that way. And like they had a section on Vietnam, and it was so long because it was like divided up by the years, like 65, 66, 67. So they're like, hey, you gotta cut some of this off. And Jem, listen, I know you've been waiting for her, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do one on Nancy yet. I know that was one of your heroes. She was the first lady of your heart, but it might be a ways off. Although I will admit I'd rather make one on her than her husband. It'll be way easier because I have her memoir, and also there's some other book that was written on her about a year ago or 2 years ago. Is it true what they say about Johnson? Has he done what he said he would do? Two songs I had to sing. But no, I know you love Nancy. She was like your other mother, but we gotta hold off on her for a bit. No pressure. No, I know that come January 20th, 2025, when President Haley takes over and Biden leaves office, you're gonna be like, "Where's my Joe Biden documentary part one, or is it?" Dude, I'm not even joking. I don't know how I would even do a Biden one. Like, he's got two memoirs, both of which are very outdated. And it's like, yeah, other people have written books on him, but they don't include certain things that are not as fun, if you know what I mean. So, Dude, Haley is in third place in Iowa now. I was shocked. I said, "Wow, that debate performance really breathed new life into her campaign." I donated $1 to her campaign to be entered into the sweepstakes to go to the Reagan Library for the debate. I'm not going to win or anything. I already know, but just like as a joke, like, all right, you exceeded my expectations with that debate performance. So here you go. Here's a coin. Here's a tip in your jar. Yeah, they're like, you have a chance to see Nikki live at the Reagan Library on September 27th. Like, yeah, I don't think so, but what's $1? Hey Jim, I know you didn't see Pence's speech, but he gave like the weirdest address on Wednesday. Like he was talking about the evils of populism. Like, dude, populism has been used by winning candidates for over 100 years. Like FDR had populism. I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people. Johnson had populism. With the Great Society. I mean, well, the reason I paid attention to the speech is because, like, you remember Romney didn't like Trump, and he gave the speech about, oh, if we nominate Trump, we're going to lose the election, and then Trump ended up winning the election and being the nominee anyway. It's so weird to see a vice president run against the president that they served under, and he's like, and remember, Pence's whole campaign is the Trump Pence record was great. I'm a conservative. So much of his record is tied to his time as VP. So he's telling you not to vote for the person who had the final say on the record that he is now trying to champion. I tell you can't make this up, man. That's why I said his campaign is like so interesting from just the standpoint of, in an alternate universe where Trump had won in 2020, Pence and DeSantis would be the front runners, like by far, right? But he did nothing but do his job on January 6th. That's the only thing he did. The rest of the time, he was just giving Trump tongue baths. The president is courageous, and sometimes I disagree with him, and I tell him that in private. And you get my point that like that speech is notable to me because he's attacking the wrong issue. Populism has nothing to do with the type of Republicans that are beating him right now. And it's weird to like he's speaking very condemning of the person who is the front runner. So if Trump gets the nomination and or wins the speech, we're gonna like look back at that speech like just the complete irony. Like here was this guy who was warning that they were not only going to lose the election, but they were going to lose their like just everything, right? And they won everything. Trump never consulted them or anything. He was just there like a houseplant. Dude, I'm not even joking. I know you're probably not familiar with Ernst, the senator from Iowa. It came out about 3 or 4 years ago that her husband was the one that was like telling her, "Hey, you better not try to be Trump's VP. You bet manipulative and emotionally abusive." I really believe that if her husband wasn't like crap, Trump probably would have picked her as his running mate, like as a whole thing of, well, Hillary's a woman. Well, I've got a woman on my ticket. Because look at what he's doing now. The three top contenders for his running mate are Arizona's favorite daughter, Carrie Lake, the worst governor in America, Kristi Noem, and Georgia's most iconic politician since Jimmy Carter, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was safe, but Trump did not pander. Well, you get my point, right? That Pence was also safe. He was there to like drudge up the evangelicals. But considering that we know that Ernst was someone that he at least considered a little bit, and it was her husband who told her, don't take this, don't go for this job. You have to kind of wonder how much of the influence of this other man did that play in her, and her not getting the getting picked. Dude, I'm telling you, she is like the what's a good word for it? You remember we were talking about how like if Cruz and Rubio don't become president, they're just gonna sell those Senate seats for the next 20 or 30 years. That's exactly what she's gonna do in Iowa. Like mark my words, it's gonna be like 2028 or 32, and she's gonna try to run for president. And if she doesn't win, she's gonna be senator for the next, I don't know, quarter century plus. Like she's sitting over there buddy buddy with Haley, laughing and smiling with her. It's like if this lady got her way, you wouldn't even have a job. Another Pelosi. No, you know what? I don't even think she's gonna ever. Dude, you know that the Senate Republicans are not gonna let a woman be the, their party leader. So I don't even think she would get like the top position. I don't think you're gonna see another woman as Speaker of the House or one as majority or minority leader probably for the next 10 or 20 years. This is a man's game, dude. This is because when they were talking about getting rid of McConnell, they were talking about John Thune and Barrasso and all these other people. Oh yeah, like Feinstein. She might be the chair of some committee, but that's about it. Old hats. Dude, it's just so funny watching this primary. It's been a complete like carnival. Like I had the Ramaswamy supporters getting mad at me. This guy that nobody ever heard of now magically has this giant base of support. Then the only senator running, Tim Scott, right? No one likes him. Nobody cares about him. Oh yeah, Grassley is another example of just like, why are you even here? Like he's been in the Senate for like what is it, 40 years, and I couldn't tell you one thing he's actually done. But see, that's one of the reasons why I'd like to make a Ted Kennedy documentary because there's so much stuff with him that like I'm not even joking. When you like just sit back and think about it, you have the Immigration Act under Johnson. Then you have the attempts to draft him for president in '68. And you have Chappaquiddick. Then you have like Nixon trying to like wiretap him or whatever. It that doing one on him would be at least 10 parts or even longer than that. It would take a while. No, I don't. You put rum, dude. I have no doubt in my mind he's not getting picked because remember Trump loves loyalty, and if you run against him, even if you praise him, you're disloyal. He said that about Haley. He said that about Pence. So I have no doubt that he's not getting picked. I think what's that lady's name? Kellyanne Conway. She has a higher chance of being Trump's running mate than than Ramaswamy does. I don't think they have any chance with some of these people. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, Jim, it looks like Haley is surging, and you're gonna have to eat your words. And she's gonna win Iowa and New Hampshire and blow out Trump in her home state of South Carolina. And we did a poll where she's leading Biden the most out of any of his challengers. She's got a 6 point lead over him. So it looks like every bad thing you had to say about her, you're gonna be eating your words when President Haley takes the reins in 2025 as the 47th U.S. president and the first one from South Carolina. Dude, it doesn't matter. Like if you go look at the polling, she's in. This is her best month since she started running, all because of that stupid debate performance. Well, I mean, Jem, in the Republican primary, everyone's record is kind of a paper bag, right? Like DeSantis's record is really not good. Trump's record is especially not good, and he's leading by 20, 30, 40. Like he's funny, he's entertaining, but the things that he says that aren't bad, he lied about. So I'm just saying, like, basically, no one in that field is even I would consider good, but they're just her debate was crap. Talking point after talking point. He wants. Hey, let me do my impression of her voice. He wants China to eat Taiwan. I can just picture, like, let's say I'm China, and this is Taiwan. That's the mental image I had, like China picking Taiwan up like a burger, just swallowing it. She did zero in the UN. She took the kick me sign off our backs. Dude, she acts like she was the Secretary of State. Like, you know what? If at least if Rice had run for president, like let's say back in 2000, she wouldn't do it in 2008 because that was too soon, but like in 2012 or 16, she could have been like, I was Secretary of State for 4 years, and maybe she tried to run for, like, let's say a Congress seat, right? Like a seat in the House, right? Because she probably wouldn't try to run for governor or senator over in California because it's this is all blue. But you get my point that, like, at least she could be like, hey, I had the top job for several years, and this had me dealing with all these different countries. I know these people. Haley literally sat in a big old room with a bunch of random representatives, spoke once every 2 hours or even longer, and is like, I am now qualified with foreign policy. Like, give me a break, man. Just I don't know. Well, Benghazi, if you're talking about the 2012 attack, that was under Hillary. I do believe Rice when she said she's not interested in running for any office because she's had plenty of chances to do it and she does not want to. So, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Yeah, first woman to be national security advisor. That was while Cullen Powell was the Secretary of State during Bush's first term, and then after he retired, that's when she took over. Oh crap! Yeah, I was saying that Benghazi happened under Hillary. Oh, you mean I just wrote, yeah, Susan Rice. That's that's where the mistake occurred. Well, they were talking about her running against speaking of Susan Collins in 2020, and she didn't run at all. She put out one tweet that about like being interested in running for her seat, and nothing came out of it. They love doing that. They try to like tease you. I tell you, for a while they were saying that Caroline Kennedy was going to run for president in 2016 and 2020. I'm like, this lady has never run for anything before. The one time she considered being a politician was like over 10 years ago when the New York Senate seat was vacant after Hillary, became Secretary of State. And even then, she quit very quickly because all the press was like asking her questions, and she was nervous or flustered or whatever. So no, I knew that was total bupkis. Well, you know what it is? The generation of Kennedys after the brothers is a joke. So like you have JFK, who I think is way overrated. I've explained it before, but again, he was president. That's first Catholic president, etc. Whatever. You have Robert Kennedy, one of the best attorney generals, very much closely affiliated with a lot of the civil rights issues of the '60s. You have Ted Kennedy, one of the greatest senators of all time, and then what comes after them? What comes after? Like who in that whole group of the kids between those three men and their five or six sisters has done anything remotely interesting or yeah, exactly. RFK Jr. ironically enough is probably the most accomplished out of any of them. Um, because he has like the environmental lawyer stuff that is independent from his dad, but like Joe Jr., right? He's or excuse me, Joe the Third, RFK's oldest child. He was in the house for a couple of years and then left, and that was it. Patrick was in the house for a couple of years and then left, and that was it. So they were traumatized. No, dude, listen, don't. I'm gonna just say this. If I had a parent, like let's say my dad or my mother, most likely my dad was senator, and they were senator for 40 years, or they were president or whatever. I'm not gonna feel like I have to amount to anything. They've done every like I can just live off of them. That's how that whole generation is. I mean, look at every job they have. It's usually something having to do with their daddies. Look at Kerry Kennedy. The two important things she did: marry Kumo, the nastiest governor of New York of all time, and sit on a board that's named after her dad. Are you talking about Ethel or or maybe if you're talking about like JFK's mother, Rose? Oh, well, that's different because a lot of people tried to say she was a gold digger, but she actually came from a very wealthy family. So it was the other way around. No, I have a few books on her. I know all about Black Jack and his massive amount of wealth. And my favorite story about him is that one day he was like cheating on Jackie's mom Janet, and he took a picture where you can in the photo see him like with his wife, right? And they're smiling, and then the other side is him like holding hands with the mistress. It's just one of the goofiest images ever. Like just the blatant cheating. Like not don't even try to hide it. Like, oh yeah, Onassis. Well, that was different. That was more out of like concern for her kids because that's only what a few months after the RFK assassination. So at that point, it is realistic to believe that yeah, they are killing members of this family. That's just a thing they're doing now. Now, if I was a parent, I'd be panicked too if my spouse had been murdered in front of me, and then his brother, who I was had become closer to in the years since then, was also killed a few years. I would definitely try to get some kind of money to protect my kids. No, I don't blame her at all. It's really interesting how she gets completely overshadowed by virtue of being married to JFK, but she had a very interesting family. Like she had a dad who was this chronic cheater that was very rich, a mother who was like jumped to some other marriage and a very difficult relationship with her younger sister who felt like her dad preferred her over her. It was that's why I said there's so many people where there's like different things relating to their relationships with other people that just never get talked about. I mean, even with JFK, like if you've actually looked into his backstory, he was the sick duckling. It was his older brother that was supposed to be congressman and senator and president, and then he was killed in this very dangerous World War II mission. So all of the good graces fell on the second son instead. Oh, Jim, I'm into history and biographies and people's backgrounds. Like the Kennedys, I'm not talking about them now, but like back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they were everything. Like if you just look at JFK's immediate family, like his grandpa. His mother's dad, Honey Fitz, Boston mayor. He helped him win his first seat in the House, or I guess win his first race for the House. No, Honey Fitz wasn't a bootlegger. That was Joseph Jr. I mean, excuse me, Joseph Sr. Like I said, man, that family back in that era, that period from like the 40s to the maybe like mid 60s, they were interesting. They were, unique, whatever. But after that, it really like from when Robert died all the way up until like 2009, it really was just the Ted show. That was the only one of them that actually was like, doing important stuff and making a difference. The rest are just, you know, riding coattails basically. Uh, so I said Ted is just so interesting because he's a guy who had all of this stuff like thrust on him in like such a short span of time, like and so young too. That's why I said he's if I do a documentary on one senator, that will be the one. I just felt constantly felt very bad for him. That's one of those few very, very rich people I could truly empathize with. Because I know firsthand there's no amount of money that can make you forget about a person you actually cared about prematurely dying. But no, I know your favorite first lady was always Nancy, so that'll be the one we discuss at some point. I can assure you of that. I'll still never forgive you for trashing Betty. Betty was I mean, even people that thought Gerald was whatever still rank her as one of the best first ladies. The Betty Ford Center has done so much for people with different addictions. So I'll never forgive you for that. I'll always turn my head when you say something. I'll just look away. Dude, the only first lady I don't like is someone who I don't even have to say her name. You already know who I don't like. You know who she is. I don't even have to say who or give you any more hints than that. You already know who she is. She's the only one I do not like. Every time I see her, I just want to vomit. I'm sick of her. Now, you know which one I'm talking about. She is awful. No, I hope that was a joke. The one that, ran for president that, got the popular vote and still lost to the game show host. I didn't really think much of Melania. She's just whatever. I felt kind of bad for her because you could tell that she was someone who just like married for money and then ended up having to be like this hostess out of nowhere. It's okay, man. We don't have to agree on everything. We do have to agree on everything. We have to be in unison. We have to have be like the Borg from Star Trek and just nod our heads. Dude, Hillary is just terrible, man. Like, and honestly, the thing that's saddest to me is that in 100 years, she's the one that people are most likely to remember, right? Because she was, senator and then secretary of state, and then she ran for. But it's like She's the worst one out of any of them. Like that's what's so sad to me by virtue of holding these other offices. Oh yeah, Obama took it away, and then Bernie and Trump took it away the next time. We know this before in the lead up to 2016. Everybody was acting like she was the chosen one, right? It's the primary is just for her. It's just a formality. She's going to be the nominee. You can't do anything about it. People, Feinstein and some other goofy Democratic senators endorsed Hillary in 2013, like years before the actual damn election even took place. And that's what pissed a lot of people off. It's like you're not owed the nomination or let alone the presidency. What's wrong with you? She was so nasty in those debates. Yeah, she was gross. So I said, man, I thought I think she is um, one of the most reprehensible politicians of the last 30 or 40 years. Like there are plenty of Republicans I like more than her. She thought she had Trump, yeah, and he had her. Even though, like I said, he's been proven to be full of crap too, because he was like, you'd be in jail or whatever, but you got 91 charges against you. Nah, man, she is awful. I'm not even kidding. Like one of the things that made me so happy when Trump won, and there were very few things that made me happy when Trump won. One of the few things was that I would never have to hear her voice or see her again. That was the main thing I was excited about. Like that's it. She's done. She's gonna go in the woods, and maybe she gets mentioned here. Maybe she does an interview there or there, but there's no like mandatory viewing. That's it. It's over. You're finished. I was glad. And again, like Jem, I know you say you don't like most people were stunned. Oh, I wasn't because like I said, there were polls that showed them, like listen, a lot of those polls, the ones that are like 45, 44, those only matter if they're statewide. When they're showing polls where it's close, right? But there's this person has like a 1 point lead, 2 point lead. That means the election could go either way because that doesn't count, the electoral college. Like it doesn't tell you which states are sampling which people, if you know what I'm saying. That it's people who just didn't pay attention were stunned. Like I thought it could go either way all the way up until the end. Because like I said, we saw what happened in 2012, right, where all 4 years of Republicans talk about how bad Obama was. They only flipped two states, and it's like a bunch of states are locked down for the Democrat, a bunch of states are locked down for the Republican. CNN was like a funeral election night. Remember Van Jones? This was a white lash. I'm not even joking. Doing a top 10 first ladies video would be harder than doing a top 10 presidents video. Like, I'd actually really have to sit there and just, it would be tough. Fox News were glowing. Oh, they were blowing confetti and streamers, and I'll never forget TYT's reaction with Jenk. And I'm done with the losers. They were so smug and arrogant about how he had no chance, and by the end of it, they're all just floored. But yeah, Jem, this week I probably won't be able to finish part three because I'll be too busy. Well, you won't care anyway because you're already gonna have Barbie to watch on digital when it comes out on was that Tuesday the 12th. So you'll have other stuff to check out in the meantime. You won't be missing it too much that week. That actually is funny. They were like, "Oh, it's coming out on September 5th on digital," and then like the day it came out or was supposed to come out, nobody like hears anything. It actually is. The digital version is technically out. It's just not on any stores. So people are like uploading it illegally to different sites. But it's just like, oh yeah, now it's coming out in the 12th. Believe us, trust us. No, it's not. It's not me in that Barbie movie. It's you in that Barbie movie. That was your favorite film of the year. Saw it over and over again. You got the whole script memorized. Yeah, me neither. But that film just came out and everybody went to go see it. It's the highest grossing movie of the year, and you played a big role in that. You were mobilizing people to go out and see the film, and you were busing them. You show up in their house, load up the whole back seat with several pink wearing people. I'm a sci-fi fan. Well, the opening is a parody of what was that Space Odyssey 2001. There's some movie that came out in like I think 69, 68. So there's some sci-fi in there for you. Dude, Star Wars is down the tubes. Nobody like they had this new show come out. No one's talking about it. Well, no, you're only passing now because you didn't pass all those other times. So now that money's getting a little bit tired because you keep going to see this movie, you're finally deciding to curtail your visits. But don't worry. Look, I already know you have it on digital. You pre-order on digital. You're gonna get the Blu-ray copy, the DVD copy. You got the damn album in your back seat of your car. I already know this film has been the guiding light of this year for you. When this movie came out, it was like you got a second life. Oh, did they have multiple movies about? Yeah, they had little animated films about Barbie. There was actually one guy that reviewed the film, and he was playing the different animated films, which I thought was funny. It played a nice little touch. Well, I'm just glad you got a film about your favorite doll. You waited a long time for it. It came out and it did not disappoint you. I'm glad your favorite movie is about to be released for you to see whenever you want. So now, look, I already know that when I stream, you're going to be playing my stream in one tab and then the movie in the other. Dude, speaking of Smurfs, when I went to go see it the second time, I went to get a blue icy, and I was like, okay, this thing's probably gonna be like $5. When that lady said it was 6.25, I was like, man, for a drink. I'm not even kidding. That's more expensive than the damn coffee at Starbucks. It's like, dude, that think of how crazy this is. A large um icy at the theater, which isn't even really that big. It's like this, right? A large icy costs about as much as a gallon of gas. And it's like the movie already is like $12. So if you get like two of those, that's another total scam at the. It is. That's why I told you that every time I would go to the theater, I would eat before I went there because it just costs too. Like the movies, in my opinion, oftentimes are overpriced. I think I mentioned I went to go see a movie with somebody who was like 20 some dollars. But then the food, man, is like ridiculous. Like uh the drinks are several are like 4 or 5, or in the case of that $6, and little tiny bags of chips are $5. That's why I said, like, you can get mad at me for saying this, but you'd have to be really hungry or really insane to eat at a theater. I don't eat there either, man. That particular day, I just hadn't had an icy in years. I was like, okay, I guess I'll try one of these. It's been so long. I sneak in the water. Oh yeah, I put it in my little pocket. Talking about, I had this one person. They're like, you can't bring water to. It's like, yes, you can. They don't search you as long as you have your ticket. You can go right up in there. I put that right in my pocket on the side. They wouldn't even notice. They would think that extra bulge was just me gaining some weight there. That's no man. When they said $5 for some water, I was shocked. I think I'm kidding. I'm not paying $6 for a drink ever. That's highway robbery. Oh, it is, and unfortunately, a lot of people they fall for it. I mean, man, that was the one time I've had anything from there. Again, the last few years, I don't intend on ever getting any food from there ever again. I'll make a damn icy at home before before I try one of theirs again. I'm sure somebody cracked the code. I don't know. I just think when drinks cost more than like $3, that's ridiculous. Like that's just my opinion. When it's more than like $3 or $4, that's where I start kind of rolling my eyes and saying this is insane. What the hell is wrong with you people? Because my thing is like this is a drink that I'm gonna finish in less than an hour, right? If I just drink it, and I'm sorry, man, but there's so much more valuable stuff I can get for $6. I can get books for $6 that are gonna last me a hell of a lot longer than that. I can get Mike Pence's memoir. I'm gonna get a copy of So Help Me God and just like stick it on here every time you show up on stream. Like, hey, I have your favorite book right here. I'm gonna put that on there every time. How dare you think about books? Speaking of books, it's so funny. When I was in 10th grade, my teacher they had everybody do a book report, and she specifically, because she knew I was into politics, she specifically gave me this, not this copy, but like this to do the book report on. And I read, I'd say about at least half of it. I did the report and I got an A. So that's like, even though I have my problems with Obama, I'll always love this book and cherish it and have it right up on my heart because that was like the first time that I had an assignment about politics. Um, like after like really getting into it, where I actually just was like way more motivated to do the assignment than normal. The audacity of hope. I got the audacity of an A when I turned in that thing. Yeah, I always have to remind myself that Stalin was on the side of the Allies. I don't know, his views seem more in line with Germany and Italy. I was like, oh yeah, he was on our side, and Japan was on the Axis side. Because we get along way better with Japan nowadays than back then. So it really is like a what's the way of putting it? Like just a tonal whiplash. Like wow, things changed so much in a few decades. Just it all flipped around. He dragged Russia from fourth world to superpower. Oh, he's a very significant historical figure. But really, like all the World War II leaders, like them or not, are major parts of the histories of their country and of world history. I mean, Mussolini was in charge for 20 years. Uh, Everyone's not so favorite Adolf was, the reason that Germany has, like, they still can't get rid of the stink of him. So the 20th, excuse me, the Second World War has some of the most important people that have ever lived at the forefront of it. And there's almost not a single world leader that was involved with that who you can't still feel the impact of them today. I mean, even with Hirohito, like he's the only one of that major Axis group that survived the war, like altogether, just was around in the decades afterward. Um, he still figures into some other stuff as well. Stalin's the only one that actually built the country. You get what I'm saying, that they all have some impact on the way the country is received now, or something that they do differently. Like, remember, Roosevelt ran for a third term on the basis of, hey, there's this world war and we don't need to change leadership right now. We need to stick with the guy we have who's already got experience at this job. And I'm just saying that like every country and whoever its head of state was at the time had some kind of impact on that. Oh, didn't want to put this on stream because I didn't know if I would get in trouble or not. This is, I know it's backwards, A World at Arms, and it is a global history of World War II. It's by Gerhard L. Weinberg. It's got all the crazy people on the back. um, but it's considered one of the best books on World War II in terms of understanding how each country figured into it. I haven't started reading it yet, but that's something else I want to, get into. I've seen that book before. Yeah, it's a pretty well known novel. I was able to get it on eBay for like $4. So I mean, how could you go wrong? That when they do deals like that. I love historical works. Well, me too. That's why I like all these damn biographies. I mean, I feel like that's obvious at this point. Remember, the only thing stopping me from doing a documentary on FDR, or trying to like start one, is there's literally so many books on him. Um, I have. Well, I'd have to pull it from under there. I have a book on Churchill. I have two on him. Uh, One by, what's that guy's name? Uh, it's too far away. Let me turn the light on. Down there I don't have a light on. I can't see it too well. Yeah, one by Andrew Roberts, and then there's another one by somebody else. I told you, if we do any on anyone from Britain, there's only two people that we must do it on if we start the Britain adventure. Winston Churchill and your hero Margaret Thatcher. Those are only two we have to. If we do one, we have to do the other. There's no ifs ands about it. I know when Jem grew up under the era of Mrs. Thatcher and saw all her power, he became a true believer in the equality of all people. She changed his mind and his heart. I have both of her autobiographies, Path to Power and the other one. I forgot the name of the other one. Well, my favorite nickname for her is Margaret Thatcher, the Milk Snatcher, for the what was it, like, the funding the school, the preschool, like, lunches or something. It's so funny because it's like, whether you like her or not, she is the most significant, like, from the standpoint of public memory, she's the most significant British prime minister after Churchill. Like no one else comes anywhere close. Nobody talks about Tony Blair or Boris Johnson or Theresa May. Oh, your dad was in the Falklands War. Oh, my great grandpa was in World War I under General Eisenhower. My family had been in all British war. Oh, I thought you were American. Going back to the 17th century. No. You lied to me. I thought you were a native born New Jerseyan. I see why they wouldn't let you on the Christie 2016 or 2024 campaigns. They found out what you really were, and they said, "Hey, you're either from NJ or you're not going to come into play." I'm a citizen. Is this what Kennedy meant when he wrote the book, Nation of Immigrants? Oh, this is all revelatory to me. I had no clue. You've never mentioned this. I thought you were born here. I was recruited by my university. You deceived me. It's really sad when the people who weren't even born here know more about U.S. history than the people that were born. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to call myself some expert on British politics because I'm not. Uh, but you get my point. Though, like, I could still probably name some of the different prime ministers and maybe some major historical events. You know what I'm talking about. It's just funny to me that, like, there's so many people who don't have any idea about stuff that happened in their own country. Like they just wait. We talked about before the mundane existence. Like, yeah, in a nutshell, it's pretty much a colony splitting from another country and finally getting its independence. What 20 something years later, and then having this big issue of treating minority groups like they're subhumans, and eventually having an all-out war against itself over that issue, and over the next several decades transforming its economy to stop relying on that previous treating of people as subhumans until getting into global conflicts. Well, I mean, I hope you understand that as an American, I prioritize American history. So it's still going to be the main thing I try to look over and fully attempt to understand. And, other stuff is here and there. And American history is not easy. I will not have anyone besmirch my academic understanding of these topics. How dare you? I went to school for political science, I'll have you know. And if American history were so easy, then guess what? More people would know it. I got you right there. You've been caught, exposed, and as your point, completely disassembled. If American history were so easy, more Americans would know it. But they don't. So you've been revealed, and now we know everything about you. We know that you're not originally from here. We know that you besmirch hardworking men like yours truly who try to learn about the history of their country. And we also know that you very much are part of the Haley 2024 campaign. You can deny it, but we know what's true and what isn't. You've been exposed, and you need to come clean because the truth will set you free. I don't believe the British fought to retake. They went east on the colonists. But the British failed to out west. Colonies were reorganized and spread west. That's why I said that period before, like between the War of 1812 and then the Civil War, there's like this 30, 40-year period where the now supposedly fully independent US is trying to like discover what it is. I just think it's so interesting just thinking about how it like the US really doesn't come into being its own country until arguably after 100 years, like until it starts dealing with world affairs and other people, and there's like the national unity that came after the Civil War. It really is just like a bunch of states that don't like each other, that are all like connected by land or whatever. And like you get the idea that I just find that so interesting to me. Just think about American history and how so much stuff about it has changed and developed. Like if you look at the US, again, not even factoring in technology, but just like the rules from the 18th century, or I guess 19th century, just any of those periods, and like now it's so different. There's so many amendments and different conflicts, and like we've seen it before. You look at the fact that we I've never would consider doing a documentary Abraham Lincoln because he's just so well known, but you consider the fact that one of the things that led up to Lincoln's assassination was his reelection, because he was the first president since Andrew Jackson to win a second term. And it's like you have to really think about that. That was 8 different men between those two who all had one term or less. And like that's like another showing of how unstable the US was, where like it was constantly changing leadership. Like you can't even get 8 years of somebody. You might get 4, 3, 1. Like I just think all of that together, when you really sit back and think about, like, wow, for all these years they just went through people. Because that was actually something I was going to point out if I did one on Van Buren, that he was only out of office for he only lived out of office for like 20 years, but he saw 8 successors, like the most successors of any American president, because everyone after him until Lincoln just got one term or less. Like I said, Britain expected them to collapse. Well, we didn't. And look, I don't even want to hear anything else from you about foreign policy. You want China to eat Taiwan. You want uh, Putin to have Ukraine. I tell you, every time I replay that line, I'm just picturing China with like a bib on, like as a person, and Taiwan is just swallowing whole. Well, we're going back to the one China policy when President Haley gets in there in 2 years. Ukraine is not our business. Like I said, man, we agreed on that. The whole like ceasefire, like just call for a ceasefire. Nobody gets all of what they want, but it's still better than this war going on forever. You're lucky I don't have that. Haley's not more memorable. I'd be quoting her even more. I'd be like, he wants to defund U.S. support for Israel. We don't abandon our friends. We help our friends. Dude, when Biden said the war would go on and like they would use as much money as possible, like he's admitting the war is going to go on indefinitely, and there actually is no such thing as the U.S. going bankrupt or programs being insolvent or whatever the hell. Because think about it, if he can say the war is going to go on for as long as they have the like we're going to have the money to support you for as long as you need it, then yeah, then we don't have a limit. We have a never ending supply of money. Just a dumb statement to me. That's why I said when President Haley gets in there, things are going to get square. The war in Ukraine will end. Israel will get all their money that they want and need because they're under so much oppression by the Palestinians who have no power somehow. Um, the Russian can escalate. Now, when President Haley starts talking to Putin, he's gonna be like, "Oh, I agree with the wise lady from Clemson University. I agree." Dude, I'm telling you, like they all try to sound so strong when they get on TV. If trying to get into the Middle East, Israel is done. Dude, I can't even believe this stuff is even happening. Like so much weird crap just occurs like with these people, and they I swear it's like when they talk, they don't even think what they're saying. Like they will arm their allies to to the teeth. Yeah. But I was saying, like, you look at Ramaswamy and he's like, I would call for this and like, dude, no. I agree with him. You know the sad thing is it's like when he speaks, he's talking to the both sides of his mouth. Like he says, that the foreign policy experienced people have gotten us in all these pointless wars, and that he likes Trump the most of any American president of the 21st century because he's the one who didn't get in the war. It's like, dude, he killed Soleimani. He could have started war with Iran. Not to mention the fact that he kept all 7 of Obama's wars going, so kept us out of wars. What are you talking about? But I'll tell you that like doing a documentary on Trump is going to be like being in a carnival because there's so many lies, and his supporters they just suck it up. They believe it. It doesn't matter what proof there is, what proof he doesn't have. They just go yep 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 yep. God, man, I that's why I say I can't, like, I couldn't tolerate talking to those people. Figured out fast that Haram was not bluffing. I remember when he sent out that cap locks message, like threatening them, and they were, and so many people were like, "Oh, he's gonna start a war. He's starting a war." Dude, imagine if Iran or some other country had assassinated Pompeo or Tillerson or whoever the Secretary of State was, like around, like if that happened, everybody on TV would have been calling for a strike. Everyone would have been saying this is a great crime against the US. Oh Lord. Yeah, people would have lost their minds. I mean, and again, for good reason, but it's like, that's why I tell you the US really is like thinks it's the main character of the world, where it has like this plot armor and it can just treat every other country like crap. God, man. This is why the war with Russia is so dangerous. Like I said, I support the ceasefire idea that you had. I don't want to take any chances with them. I want this to be over. It's already been a year and it doesn't seem like there's any signs of improvement. Just end it. They're here quibbling. So I agree with the ceasefire. We're nodding our heads in agreement. Ugh. I don't believe the Russians are fighting with their full might. Oh no, they're backing off because they're worried about all the economic fallout they're getting, right, with all these different places putting sanctions on them and not wanting to do business with them and not letting them use their. There's a whole bunch of you know stuff happening behind the scenes that's kind of making it to where they're trying to see what all is on their arsenal. They seem to be worried about mass casualties. That's why I said this war is dangerous. Like, why? God, man, I'm telling you, sometimes I feel like I'm just in the twilight zone. Like, so much stuff could just be solved so easily, but there's always a barrier in the way, Just dumb. That'd be funny if I did a video. I was like, you know what? I don't think the war in Ukraine is going to end ever, and I think a lot of people are going to die. And then you comment on it, you go, in the words of Jesse Jackson, just keep hope alive. And you drop your peace sign. He had a book that was like a compilation of his sermons. I wanted to get it. It was on Amazon for like $6. Or you probably were you around when Akatsuki Merchant was like, I'm wondering where you get books so dirt cheap. Like, dude, you really think in an era where nobody reads that people like would price books at any high amounts? Like in the era where people are reading less and less and people, dude, people are so damn illiterate that it's been proven that most people don't even read a news article. They just read the title, like the headline. So in an era where people are more illiterate than ever, he's like, I'm just wondering how you're getting these books at such cheap prices. Like, dude, no one cares about reading. Like, listen, I could get probably, I know one store, for example, you can get 6 books for like maybe 20 something dollars. They have like on eBay, they have this one store where it's like buy 3, get 1 free. I go there all the time because it's such a good deal. Like most of the stuff is like 3, 4, $5 each. This 2 volume series on Eisenhower is all I need to do one on him. I'm still a member of History Book Club. Yeah, the 3 people that are still in there. I was going to tell you that this is actually a. I know you love maps because you were talking about the map in Barbie, your favorite movie. You're like, I'm wondering what's up with that map. You dude, you. I remember you printed it out. You were staring at it. You were drawing all over it. Now, speaking of maps, on the first page of this, they have a map. Yeah, I know the quality of the camera's not that great, but you get the idea. Even here they have a nice little thing for people to look at. Yeah, one in the back too. Like I said, man, I'm really serious about doing these. Um, I'm doing them the way I'm doing them because when I do it in parts, it's not as insane of a workload for me. I don't feel like my arms are falling off and I'm getting like 10 views for you know literally like a lot of work. So I think when it's split up this way, it's less of a toll on me, if you get what I'm saying. But like I said, Jim, eventually we're going to get to your hero, Margaret Thatcher. We'll get to the only woman you ever loved, Nancy Reagan, and we'll also touch base with. We don't even need to do one on her. We can just get her books. We'll make sure we talk more about your favorite presidential candidate ever, Nikki Haley. Dude, Haley is surging. She's on her way. She's she's exceeding all expectations. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows. Oh, we can do an Elizabeth. There's a on Queen Elizabeth. There's a book on her that came out about 10 years ago. I've heard nothing but good things about it from I think it was Sarah Bradford. So she's also someone we can touch base on. I tell you, I've been to your house. I saw the pictures. You had your five British heroes on the wall. You had Queen Victoria, Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, Princess Diana, and Queen Elizabeth. Those are your five British heroes. The five UK citizens you will never forget. They said when you try to draw them, you don't have to look at a picture. You burn their images in your memory. And you have disparaged everyone on this stage. Dude, I feel so bad for Scott. Like, I'm sure uh all those like idiots in the Senate that were like, you should run for president. You have a chance against Trump. I'm sure some of them actually did mean it, but I think other ones were like playing with him. They're like, yeah, I'm sure you could definitely beat the most popular living member of our party. Oh, you didn't like Diana? Oh, you. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. You're in the Diana Ross. My mistake. Wrong Diana. Oops. Pick the incorrect one there. Scott has no chance in hell. I know, but it's like think of how screwed he is. Like he's the only senator running, right? Out of any of the senators. And that should already let you know this is like a joke primary. Because you know damn well Cruz and Rubio wake up and breathe wanting to be president, right? Like you know that they would kill to run again if they thought they had a real chance. But dude, like Scott is funny because he's the only senator running, which already shows you that it's like a joke primary, and he's running against someone from the same state as him. So like he can't even use like, hey, South Carolina is an early primary state, and I'm from here. She give me an event. Even that doesn't work for him. That's hilarious. Dude, the only people that have a chance of that nomination that aren't Trump, I'm dead serious when I say this. The only ones based off of polling are DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and maybe Haley. I think too many people hate Pence and Christie. Dude, Scott's campaign was dead on arrival. Him and Larry Elder. Dude, Larry Elder was the funniest one because it was like, I'm going to show everyone that we have a country to save. And then he doesn't even make it to the first debate stage. I'm going to sue the RNC. They cheated me. I gave him a buck too. I was like, all right, here you go. Oh, you didn't make it. All right, well, drop out. Dude, I can't wait to see the look on Jem's face when it's January 2025 and President Haley is delivering her inaugural address. You actually did mention Bachman at the start of this. That'd be funny. We do like a documentary on like all the Republican crazy chicks from over the last 20 or 30 years that people were hyping up and they turned into nothing. Doing on Palin, doing on Bachman, doing on Fiorina. Dude, Palin was the funniest one because it's like, here's this, woman that is considered attractive, right? She ends up becoming governor of her state, and then she just resigns after one term, not even a full term, right? And then for like the next 3 years, people are thinking, oh man, she's gonna run against Obama, and it's like, no, not really. And then for the next 4 years, people think, oh, mate, she might run in 2016. Oh, not really. And then she like starts kissing up to Trump right during that year, and then she finally decides to run for office again after 10 plus years, and she gets wiped out. Like, how do you go from being governor of the state, the vice presidential nominee of your party in a presidential election at one point, dude? But Jim, you get where that's like a big like Nixon was VP and senator and congressman. Then he came back and tried to run for governor of California and lost. But he was smart. Like he was. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's not unheard of for somebody to like achieve some high or like some kind of big position in the state and then not be able to get another one. With her, that's really insane. Like she should have won that handedly. But it's just like with Carrie Lake in Arizona. Like, how do you lose a gubernatorial election in red Arizona as a Republican? Like, what? Dude, if you watch that debate with her and Biden, you would think like Biden got replaced by an old man. Like he was so adept 10 years ago, and like I don't know what happened. Just his brain did not go so well after he got out. And people have been saying this about him ever since he came back. Well, you better not talk too much about Lake, or she might end up being your next VP. I really hope not. I hope her and Green are nowhere near the White House. Like Noam is evil, but at least she's a hot evil lady that I can actually sit there and listen to her talk and not feel annoyed. Like Lake just lies too much, and Green's got like the squealy voice. The Democrat Party is trying to say, that he got old, dude. The way he walks. That's your president. That's why in November 2024, you will be voting for Joseph Robinette Jr. for Robinette Biden Jr. for a second term as president. Of course, it won't matter because President Haley will crush him and then she'll take over. I tell you, the sad part is people who are like the non-progressive are like, if you don't vote for Biden, then Trump or DeSantis will get in there and they'll do something even worse. Jim, you understand that the president is not the emperor. So if the Democrats actually had a good party that was competitive everywhere, they could get a super majority in both the House and Senate, and then all the Republicans president would be able to do is just pass executive orders. Like that, like that's it. They would just have their hands tied for 4 years straight, unless they compromised. You know that, right? Like if the Democrats were able to get super majorities in the House and Senate, they wouldn't need they like oh, I'm so scared of Trump and DeSantis. Why? They couldn't do anything. Certainly nothing that Congress couldn't just destroy. Nikki is a dead end. Dude, I still can't believe she is in third place now. Like Trump's pollster said she was surging in Iowa, so and he wasn't lying. I saw the polls. Compromise a dirty word. But dude, like you understand And like, I don't expect everyone to have some great, terrific, amazing memory of pure, but like, you were a kid, or I guess like a little boy, when the older Bush was president. The older Bush had a Democratic Congress. Democrats had the Senate and they had the House. In fact, we discussed this before, but between Eisenhower and Clinton, every president had to deal with the Democratic House. The Democrats had the House for 42 years straight. They had it from 1952 all the way up until the Republican Revolution of 1994, where Gingrich, one of your original heroes, came through and was able to get the Republicans to break the Democrats' several decades long hold on the House. Right, but I'm just saying that you understand that in the past, when the Democrats had more seats in Congress, the Republican presidents can only do so much because they don't have control, they don't have power. So that's why I was saying, if the Democratic Party wasn't such a piece of crap, because look, man, in a lot of states, like much of the South, the Democrats don't even try. Like, I told you that when Sessions ran for reelection in 2014 in Alabama, he had no opposition. Like, they didn't even bother. That's what I was saying. If they were able to be competitive in places like Texas, Louisiana, um, I mean, hell, even South Carolina, because South Carolina is really not that red. It's like 50-40. So you could probably squeeze out some more Democrats if you tried hard enough, to where they actually thought they could beat Graham 3 years ago. If the Democrats were a truly 50-state party, they could win a supermajority, and then whether it's Trump, DeSantis, Haley, Ramaswamy, or your dead mommy, like, they wouldn't be able to do anything. They would have their hands tied. And yet Reagan legalized millions of immigrants. I thought you liked Reagan. He's the one that taught you it was always morning in America. Dude, the worshiping they have of that man is insane. Like, I'm not even joking. Sometimes I almost think that he was like the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. Like, the way that Republican politicians talk about him disturbs me. They mention him so much. They bring him up emphatically. It's insane. Like, Christie at the debate was like, the last Republican that beat a Democratic incumbent was a governor from a blue state who knew to get there. It's like, no, no, Reagan was not from a blue state. California was not blue in the 60s when he was elected governor. It was purple. California didn't even really turn blue until the early, like, probably, honestly, I'd say the early 90s, early 2000s. Well, Um, it held out a little bit longer because of the Terminator as governor, but yeah, like around the 2000s, when we really, like, that was when it's like, yeah, no going back. It's all blue. That's it. I would not go that far, dude. I'm telling you, man, these people just that whole debate. And even when Pence gave his speech on Wednesday, he was like, he brought him up. He brought up meeting him. He did a impression of his voice. It was weird. God, man, like, I'm not even joking. Sometimes I really think these people, when they go to sleep at night, they have like a picture of Reagan, like, right above their bed. Like, it's crazy, because again, they don't bring up anybody else like this. I haven't seen a Republican yet mention Eisenhower. And even though the Bushes were in office less than 30 years ago, they don't bring them up either. The only Republicans I hear about from these modern clowns are Lincoln, Reagan, and now Trump. That's it. That's actually a real shame they don't bring up Eisenhower. He was a that's sad because there's somebody that should be getting some more worship and admiration. It's him. Oh yeah, he was certainly more moderate than the Bush 43 and Trump. Absolutely. But again, part of that was just the. I mean, remember, this is the guy that called LBJ a bum and said that Medicare was socialism creeping into the elderly's health, some goofy crap. But guess what? When he got in office and got around all those Democrats in the House and Senate, he had to play ball. He got Gorbachev to tear down the wall by giving a stupid speech. I mean, a brilliant speech. Oh man. So I said, you can have him, Jim. You can take Reagan and put him in your pocket. He can belong entirely to you, and I won't even bat an eye. I'm like, okay, there you go. You can have your friend. Oh man. That's what I thought was the craziest thing about him. Like he was this big FDR supporter, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm so against social programs. Like, what the hell? Just weird, man. Like that's what folks don't understand. The Russians have really been stepping back for years. They gave up Germany. Oh yeah, they're ready to bring the band back together. They want to make sure they get all the USA still occupies Germany. Well, get ready to blame Merkel for that. Obama was talking about she was my closest diplomatic partner when I was yeah, but then you still occupy her country. Interesting. Oh man. So Jim, do you have anything else left to say? Because I'm about to pack it in. I'm about to go and get my stuff from the store, and then I'll come back and finally rest. But if you have anything else to say, let me know. I'm surprised. I'm actually really surprised you were up early because you were complaining about me being up early. You were like, "You are streaming too early. I hate your channel. I will unsub. I will go and watch the Young Turks and Kyle Kalinske." I will check them out instead of you. No worries. Thank you. Well, look, I'm glad you were satisfied with the documentary. Again, part three. I want to get at least a 2 week courtesy. I'm gonna try to finish it before the month is out, and it's gonna cover at least a portion of his time as senator. And after that, we'll only have like what 1 or 2 more parts to do, and then we'll be at the presidency, and that'll be a mammoth of a video that I'll figure out the logistics of how we're gonna do it later on. Oh, you too. And thanks for the contributions yesterday. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm hard at work. If you don't believe me, you got your results right there. I wrote a 30, that script for those 2 parts was over 30 pages long. and I'm still not even halfway done. Because, like I said, these things are being researched. I'm reading a lot of stuff. I'm trying to put in my own words, etc. So, yeah, part three will be out this month, and then after finishing the pre-White House years of Johnson, we can discuss possibly doing Roosevelt or somebody else too. Which again, that's not a set in stone though, so I don't know for sure if I'm going to. But Johnson is definitely the one where it's at all the way with LBJ. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you all of your inquiries and questions and intrigues were answered, and I tried very hard to make sure everything was sorted out. I much prefer this to having to go up to stupid Starbucks and sit in that blazing hot car with those people playing the music and potentially getting me in trouble with whatever copyright services there are. But yeah, it's what did Bush say in his I think it was the 1991 State of the Union. The winds of change are with us now. that's how it is. The documentary, that thing is moving. No more. Oh, I might do this. No, something's getting made. So have a good rest of your day, Jem, and take care.